Imagine if where you grew up determined how much money you could make, how healthy you'd be, or how far you could go in life. Sounds crazy, right? But in America, your neighborhood and the opportunities it offers shapes your future. And the reason for this? Racial segregation. It's not just a history lesson, it's the reality of what's happening today. Across the country, our neighborhoods are still deeply segregated. A typical white person lives in a neighborhood that's 75% white, while only 8% African American. For an African American person, their neighborhood is usually 45% black, with just 35% white. But here's the kicker. These neighborhoods, predominantly people of color, are often in high poverty areas. Think failing schools, unsafe parks, and grocery stores with empty shelves. Why is this happening? It's not about personal choices. It's a system of policies and practices that deliberately segregated communities based on race. And that system still holds today. Let's rewind. In the early 1900s, millions of black families moved from the rural South to cities up north, hoping for better opportunities. But they were forced into segregated neighborhoods through laws like zoning ordinances and racial covenants, which blocked black people from owning homes in many areas. Then came the 1930s, and the Federal Housing Administration, FHA. The FHA refused to insure loans in black neighborhoods, locking families out of wealth building through home ownership. Fast forward to the 1950s and 60s, and the suburban boom took off. But redlining kept black families out of these new suburbs, trapping them in underinvested, impoverished areas. It didn't end there. Urban renewal in the 1960s and 70s tore down black homes for new development. But instead of improving things, it pushed families into even worse conditions. Racial segregation doesn't just affect where people live, it impacts every part of life. Education? Schools in black and brown neighborhoods are underfunded, overcrowded, and lack resources. Jobs? People of color face higher unemployment rates and fewer opportunities for high-paying work. Health? Poor neighborhoods mean poor health care, higher stress, and lower life expectancy. And housing? In segregated neighborhoods, house values don't appreciate as much, limiting wealth growth for black and brown families. This means the cycle of poverty gets passed down generation after generation. Recent studies show that children who grow up in wealthier neighborhoods have a better chance of economic mobility. But for kids in high poverty areas, things like lower test scores, higher dropout rates, and fewer opportunities are the norm. The disadvantages of segregation don't just affect one generation, they affect the next. Even though laws like the Fair Housing Act of 1968 aim to end discrimination, the system of exclusionary zoning still makes it tough for low-income families, especially people of color, to move into wealthier areas. Gentrification now pushes longtime residents out of historically black and Latino neighborhoods. The truth is, segregation isn't just about housing. It's a system that shapes education, jobs, healthcare, and access to safe spaces. It creates disparities in wealth, health, and opportunity that grow over generations. This isn't just about where people sleep at night. It's about access to opportunity. Segregated neighborhoods lock people of color out of wealth and success. This system was built intentionally, and it's still affecting millions of lives today. So when we talk about residential segregation, we're talking about the foundation of inequality in America. A foundation that keeps people of color locked out of opportunity, generation after generation. Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper into stories like this, follow us for more. This is just the beginning. Let's keep talking about the history that shapes the world we live in today.